All right, folks, I am here to both fulfill a promise I made to my students and to also show you how to take your wonderful masterpieces in Substance Painter and bring them into the Unreal Engine, and in our case, specifically virtual reality. It doesn't have to be virtual reality, but I'm going with the virtual reality because I find it a lot of fun to actually go up and walk around somebody's model in VR, and you really see all the texture flaws and all the different little things here and there. So with that said, we're going to use one of my students' work, Ivan Leon. This kid is amazing. I've had very few students that kind of, I had this semester in this class specifically, I did like a materials texturing class. All the students did a great job. I was kind of shocked at how really well they did and how they stuck with it all the way through. I mean, they learned a ton in this one class. But, I hate to be a favoritism person, but there's always like one or two that go that extra mile. And again, it doesn't mean that the other classmates are like, this is their first try, obviously, and you always suck at your first substance, shot. But this was basically the first one right out of the gate. So another honorable mention here is also one of my other students, Megan. She did this incredible, I don't know, something about the way she captured the specularity. A little bit clean over here, but overall just an amazing job on these two. This is exactly how they look like in real life. So pretty amazing work for somebody that has never done a substance. That's the first Substance Painter model. So, but you can see here, Ivan did a great job in capturing the Harrison station. And I always tell people, like, when you're working on all this, these subtleties and specularity are really what make this come to life. And you can see it over here, just like right over here. And they went out and took about 1 million pictures of this and basically did a great job. Like I said, you can see the scale looks right, the dirt, and it's not overboard on the dirt. You always see these Substance Painter models that are like crap load of dirt on there. So I'm going to show you, and this is going to be a scenario as if you lost your Maya file that you originally worked from. They work from a low-res and high-res out of Maya. But there's actually an export geometry option, Substance Painter. So if for some reason your house burned down, but you had your Substance Painter file, and you opened it up, and we're using the latest version of Substance Painter, 2018 3.1, so I don't think it really makes a difference anyway. But we're going to come in here and take Ivan's incredible work and bring it through to the Unreal Engine. My next tutorial, I'm going to jump into showing also how to take this into Marmoset. So Marmoset, again, not very difficult, but I'm finding more and more that if you really want to be a hotshot with your ArtStation portfolio, it's really cool to have an ArtStation sort of setup where you can actually have your, people looking at your stuff kind of move around and, examine your tessellation and see how you create low res to high res, because there is a high res versus low res here. You can see even right here that Ivan has this nice transition here, but the reality is if I come in here and take a look at the wireframe, which is always a pain in the neck to find. Let's see here. I always can never find things in this program. There it is. All right, so you can see the wireframe. Does he have a bevel there? No, he does. I guess he does have a bevel there. But in general, he's got a pretty low res mesh here. All right, so let's take this thing out of the program. First off, we're going to export out the geometry inside of Maya. Now, it's important to note that this is actually 4 UDIMs, or 4 UV texture sets, or 4 UV sets. So you can see he's got left glass pane, right glass plane. Now, why did he do that? He did that because I told him to do it, and that has to do with the fact that I was trying to demo the process of trying out the refractive options inside this program, which don't really work that well when you want to transition them over into, say, Unreal or Marmoset. So in this case, he's working with the transparency in here, for opacity. So for instance, if you go to the left glass pane here, and again, you can see there's 4 sets here, and I'll turn them on and off so you can take a look at them just for your own reference. You can see here that we have, let's take a look at our texture set settings. You can see that he does have an added opacity pass here for the dirt. So there is dirt grime on the window here. So again, the left glass plane, you can see it right there. He's got some emissive over here. So I'll turn off the left side here. So here's the left side. Reason why we actually went this route is for the ability to do basically projection painting from a orthographic view. So again, if I take orthographic here and hit F to frame, he can actually remove these materials and project on this side. Hold on, shift and snap to this side. Not have anything getting in the way. So there had to be a lot of instancing in this case, and I tell you, these guys, my hat's off to them. They went through the ringer. I mean, they really kicked their butt, and I was, again, I have a sick mind in that I enjoy torturing students because they're actually learning, okay? And I don't know what it is about teachers that, not like I'm taking my frustrations out of students, but I actually get a glee in watching them go through the trials and tribulations to become really good artists. And I didn't enjoy it when I went through it, but what's really great is to see the hard labor and the exhaustion brought forth to a point where they become really good artists. And I think everybody out of this class did an amazing job, and they have no excuse from here on out. I think they got enough information to really dive in. They made a couple of materials here in Substance Designer, which is really great. So enough of my rambling. You could see that we had the right side glass, and so we got to experiment with the refractive properties inside of iRay, but for the most part everybody stuck with using just the alpha for transparency, because there is, if you see my earlier videos, there's a whole section about how the refraction will not allow for, the refraction setup inside of iRay uses black and white values of the color, base color, to determine transparency, and hence you cannot have white colored dirt on your scene because that just always registers as transparency, which is kind of stupid. So hopefully the folks at Algorithmic will figure that one out. Otherwise, you just got to deal with what you got. So again, you can see we got a great, really awesome out here. We have some emissive in the background there, and again, I can play around with that, but I'm not. So first, let's go ahead and take this and get this out of here. So you can see I have this export mesh. And I'm going to export this onto a folder that I've created called Ivan. So I'll just call this, I'll leave it Ivan object blah blah blah. So I'll hit save. Alright, so now we're going to jump into Maya and see what we get in there. Okay, so we are inside of Maya, and I went ahead in my Ivan folder and put an export textures folder. This is where we're going to export our textures from Substance. I have my OBJ file here that was exported out of my Substance file. And I'm going to just drag that into my Maya scene so you can take a look at what's going on here. So what you can see is you can have these member sets here of 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 3, and 4. So if I take a look, come over here and take a look here, I'll turn on wireframe unshaded. This is our low res mesh, obviously. And you can see if I grab these here, I can actually select the UV sets. And if you wish, you could right click in the UV sets here and transform them over. So again, if you have your UV transform tool over here, go to UV toolkit, you can come over here to your transform, and I have my move tool set to 1, and you can move these around if you wish back to individual quadrants. So with that said, I'm just going to re-import this again. I think I have a problem with my undo button in my so anyway, keeps turning off on me. I have to keep turning it back on. Okay, so here is the actual mesh. So even though it's one mesh, we have these four sets, and when these come into the engine, they're actually going to separate into 4 separate meshes. Now you might freak out and be like, oh, I can't do that. Don't worry, we're not going to. There's other ways of doing like member sets and so forth based on ID maps and so forth, but we're just going to bring in the 4 meshes and group them together. One thing I want to discuss with you guys is about glass. There are some rules inside the engine which do not really bode well for those of us that want to actually have one side of this glass be a sign and the other side be the glass itself. You can see there's semi-transparent or not transparent at all or opaque. There's only 1 or 2. So my recommendations next time, as you'll see in this demo, it'll be a bit flawed. My next time is those signs that we had on the side, make them separate pieces of geometry, and then have whatever's supposed to be glass, and not have anything else be in there that has a solid, perfect, opaque object in it. So semi-transparent works. Fully transparent and half transparent in one single material or UV set or UV texture set or single mesh is not going to work, as I'm going to demonstrate to you in a minute here. So again, it's some kind of obnoxious flaw, but it's just the reality of what we got to deal with. Okay, so with that said, we don't have to do anything inside of Maya with this. We could take this mesh directly into the engine in a minute here. But let's go ahead and jump back into Substance and export out our textures. So here we are, and I'm going to go to the Export Textures option. And if you take a look at the configuration, we are going to be choosing Unreal. So if you see here, we have Unreal, Standard, Metallic, and under Styled here. So there's these two right here, and then you have this one here, which is Unreal Force Packed, which uses emissive and metallic and all that. So we're going to use the Unreal Engine 4 pack, which is the PBR metallic roughness workflow, as you can see here. So I'm going to go to my export here. We're going to, obviously it's set to Unreal Engine 4 packed, which you can go ahead and choose. I have it set to, you click here and choose the folder you want to dump this into. I put it to Ivan Export Textures. We're going to use PNG 8-bit. And you can see in here what we're going to export. Some of these have emissive passes. It looks like they all have emissive passes, but the question is whether or not they will actually be exporting emissive is a whole other question here. So with that said, I have these all set to 4096. You can put this to AK. I tried it with Ivan's and it crashed, and that's why it's experimental, because big scale scenes with a lot of texturing work will crash because they haven't figured out their stuff yet over at Algorithmic to get this to work at AK. I think AK would be great for virtual reality, obviously, but again, it'll be a little bit more taxing and more expensive for the system, for the engine, so to speak. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit export on here. And this is where you go get a big cup of coffee, because if you were working at 2K, it's got to reproject at 4K every single paint stroke that Ivan did and basically export it out. So again, we'll just have to come back. Alright, so let's open the folder and see what we got. So we have a series of these different images here, all labeled with right, left, blah, blah, blah. So that said, let's go into Unreal. If you're not already aware, Unreal Engine is for free, so you just download it and then you just launch the newest Unreal Engine. I also, if you have Steam, and again, if you guys are working off the computer at the school, make sure Steam is enabled, and you're doing this all probably on a computer with Steam, with the HTC Vive. You can also do Oculus Rift, obviously. But the HTC Vive is what you want to have enabled and have Steam VR on. Steam VR has an icon that looks like this. So if you see it on the computer in the room with the actual VR, you can have VR, or you can go out and spend $800 and get a whole VR headset, so forth. Just make sure you have a very fast graphics card, like a 1080 GTX. So anyway, let's launch it. And here is our setup for projects. We're going to do a new project, and we're going to choose virtual reality. Otherwise, you can choose first person. Doesn't really matter. Any one of these. Say if you just want to look at it in first person, you don't have a VR helmet, you can. But I'm going to show you virtual reality. Here is virtual reality. I'll say create project. And by default, it starts with a map that is in here. There's multiple maps in here. So what you're going to do is you're going to say open level. And you can see the different options for the virtual reality here. So you have this virtual reality BP or virtual reality. But in virtual reality, you have this. If you go up one, virtual reality MP maps, and you want to choose motion control map. There's also a locomotion map for movement. That's just moving around, but we're going to do the teleportation. So motion control map, hit open. And here you are. And in any one time, you can go ahead and throw on your VR helmet and play this. So you can come over here and go to VR preview, and then you'll be in VR. So if I hit this really quick, you can see I'm in VR. I'll move I don't have my helmet on right now, but I could just show you, like, look, I'm in VR. You know, I can use your controllers. You hit escape to get out of that. So the scene has a couple things in it that we can probably just pull out a lot of stuff in here. So for instance, there is a series of volumes, navigation, sort of like volume nodes here for walking around and so forth. I'm not going to delete anything just yet. There is some lighting tools in here. Under lighting, you can see we have a light source, which is this light that if we use W, E, and R, we can rotate and we can get different times of the day. So you can see I can come to like a sunset time. And if I wish, I can go ahead and hit build, or just say build lighting only, and give it a couple seconds to render. And I can see the sky has turned a different shade to like a sunset or orange color. And just give it a couple seconds. It's still rendering. You'll see lighting build complete at the bottom corner. So now you can see the lighting has changed. Or you can go ahead and do the overhead view again. Again, you got to update it by actually building the lighting. So hit the build light, and you can't see it in this recording, but at the bottom right hand corner of your screen you should see building lighting 0, 50%, 100%. Just wait for it to build. You'll get like an error log message saying da 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 or something's wrong. So there you go. Alright, so you do have a basic lighting setup here. You got a skylight and all these other fun stuff that you have in here. So I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm really just worried about bringing in my geometry. So let's do that. So here is my Ivan final OBJ exported directly from Substance Painter. So I'll just drag that right into my scene here. And there's a couple options here. You could also convert your scene units from FBX to centimeters, whatever, but I'll just say import all. And you'll get some warning signs that say no smoothing groups, object is really small, and it is. So here you can see the pieces here, and we need to drag them into our scene. So we got to grab them all together by holding down Shift. We're going to just drag them into our scene, and there they are. So I'm going to hit the letter R to scale this up. And we're going to scale this puppy up pretty big. It's currently on its side. That's okay. And then hit the E button for rotate and just click this until it snaps to 90 degrees. Hit the W key to translate it, and we're going to get it sitting up a little bit right there. And so forth. So put that right there. Now this is where you want to judge scale, obviously. Oops. So you might have to come in here and use your middle mouse button wheel to go kind of scroll up and down. It's a little bit odd. The controls are a little bit different from Maya. And again, you might want to scale. I'm going to scale this up even more a little bit and put this right about there and move it over this way. There we go. So that's our starting point. And you can see it consists of 4 pieces of geometry here. So if I kind of like expand this over here, we have 1, 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, corresponding to our texture sets inside of Substance. So this one is, if you recall from Substance, I believe this is, yeah, this is like the left, we'll just go ahead and call this the subway left glass. And we'll call this one subway right glass, and this was subway left side, and this is subway right side. So it's all put in alphabetically here, so you can see da 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 da. So these 3 things you can group. We're going to do that in a minute, but as of right now, they're just in here. We want to take a look at each one of these pieces of geometry here, and you can see if I grab all 4 of them at once, go ahead and just give me some room here. So if I grab all 4 of these at once, we have a couple options here we want to turn off, just so that we can actually move through this. We don't want to actually have this be a collision object, because we want to actually kind of walk up to it and move around in it and so forth. So if you take a look here, there should be physics and collision here. Let's see if I take these individually here. Yeah, it should be, I don't know why they're not showing up. Oh, that's right, details. It's been a while, folks. So I'm going to grab all 4 of these, and you can see if you come to collisions, where's the collisions at? Here it is. Collision presets are set to default, and you want to put this to no collisions. So if you take a look at all 3 of these now, they should be no collisions. See, you can do them individually or all 4 of them. So now in VR we'll be able to basically walk up to them and go through them, and we're not going to be able to like get in there when we try to teleport. So let's start setting up our materials. You can see they already given us 4 beautiful materials here, and if you take these, if I just select nothing here, if I take this material, right-click it, you can see if you go into the options for this asset location, you can see select actors using this asset. So you can see this one is left glass, so we probably could rename this. So I'll just rename this left glass. And again, it's going alphabetical here. This is the next one over. And again, you can click and open them up. But I'm going to, again, take these and say, select actor. So that's the right glass, right? So I'm going to right click and rename that. So I'll call this right glass. And this one will be the left geo, so I'll just rename it. And I'll rename this. Whatever you want to name it, doesn't really matter. It's good to know what everything is. So I'll call this the right geo. Alright, so we know what we need here, so let's bring in all of our texture sets. So I'm going to jump over here, go to my D drive, and I will take this and come all the way over here, come to my Ivan folder. Let's find that Ivan folder here. There it is. Here's our texture sets. So you can see here we have stop right, left glass, left side. So all I need to do is to take all these and drag them in. I think for now I'm going to do these one at a time. So I'm not going to drag all of these in at one time here. So I'm going to take the left glass, which is right here, okay, and bring in, there's only 3 texture sets for that. So I'm going to go ahead and drag those in. Now what it did was it has the RGBA, including the alpha transparency in this one. This is your base color. It has your normal map, and then it also has your left glass. This is basically roughness, occlusion, and metallic all at once. You can see the order is RGB, occlusion, roughness, metallic. So red is occlusion. These are all grayscale maps. So red is occlusion, blue is roughness, and metallic is blue. Or green. Roughness is green, metallic is blue. So that order is according to the way it's listed right there, occlusion, roughness, metallic, and that's it. Now, you could also bring in a depth, a height map in here and use it for actual displacement. There's some displacement tutorials that can actually do displacement objects if you want it. It's another way of creating real displacement in your geo. In this case, we're just using normal map for displacement, which is a fakery, like I mentioned before. So we want to stick with our left glass here. I'll double click it. This opens up our little icon here, and we want to start dragging in those texture files. But before we do that, we have to make a couple adjustments on here. The actual, this guy right here, this normal map, you double click it, you'll see that the sRGB has been turned off. This has to do with LUTs, lookup tables, color space correction. We need these values cannot be brightened up by an sRGB gamma curve, so we want to make sure those are off. I can go in a whole lesson about our RGB. This here is your setup here. You can see the colors look really weird. Again, if you want to see what this looks like, you can go to View, and you can see the different channels. So if I take this, you can see here's the red channel, which is our occlusion. Here's our green channel, and then you got right here, which is our metallic, right? So you can see all 3 of them together give this kind of cool rainbow effect. So with that said, what we need to turn off is sRGB on this. So I turn that off, and this should darken things up. If you don't do this, your floor will look very shiny. So just make sure sRGB is turned off. You just want the values to be, these are the values are 0 to 1, not brightened up 0 to 1 values. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. And now we're ready to bring these into the setup. So again, I take my left glass, just take that, and I'm going to drag in these pieces. So again, all you do is you just take, do this as best I can here, this screen space. So I'm going to shift select these 3, left drag them into my actual file here. And I'm going to delete this. So here is the setup. It's very simple actually. You just come in here and plug this into your base color. And then you also have the option here for the normal map. And then finally we have the R, G, and B. So again, if you hover over this thing, you'll see it says occlusion roughness, right? So red is occlusion. I always start, you start from the bottom to the top, and then the top to the bottom here, and the bottom to the top here. So green is roughness, next one up. Blue is the one all the way up to the top, which is metallic. So we haven't set opacity yet. You'll notice there's opacity and opacity mask in here, and our alpha channel is like right here. So there is transparency information in here. How do I know that? Well, you can find out if you wish by creating if you come in here and you right click, you'll have a search menu. You can type in a linear and make a lerp or linear interpolate, and you can bring that in here to the alpha. And then if you click here, you can see what it looks like, the alpha transparency. So you can see there's a semi-transparency in here, and then the full transparency is white for the actual signage. And again, this is something we don't usually want to do, so I'm just kind of giving you an FYI. So I'm going to delete that. And we're all set. You have to close this, and you have to say, would you like to apply the changes to the material? You say yes. It's not going to apply till you get in there. Give it a couple seconds, and it should pop up. So I'm going to come over here and zoom in on my work, and you can see we have the sign. Now, already you're going to start to look at this and go like, what the heck is going on here? Why is this not transparent? We're going to set up transparency in a minute. I'm going to just set up the basic materials. Okay, so we do the same thing for these other materials. Again, we jump back to our folder, and this time I'm going to choose my right glass, right? So here's the right glass, right? Normal occlusion base, right? So I will just take that and drag those in. Make sure you get the little plus arrow when you do it. Sometimes it doesn't show up. And it takes some time to do it. Okay, let's give it a second here. Okay, so same thing again. You can see here, this is the right glass. We have to change. The normal map will be fine. It'll always have sRGB. I think it recognizes the name normal and changes it for us. But this pack thing, we're going to go ahead and turn off sRGB. Again, close that up. Don't do that. Just make sure you do that. And then we go to our right glass. Double click it, and the same thing again. You can go ahead and get rid of this default thing here. Drag this over. And you can't see it. I'm going to try to just I'll just drag it into the scene here. So I'll grab this, this, and this, drag it into the layout, and we're going to plug these in. So packing obviously is more optimized. So again, I'll just put this into the base color, this into the normal map, and then again, starting from the bottom to the top, ambient, roughness, metallic. And we will close this down and say yes. Now, for those of you that have something else that doesn't have transparencies, you won't have the issues that we're going to be talking about here. So you're basically looking at something without alpha transparency to it. That's why Ivan specifically tinted the glass blue, and he's got some dirt and grime on it, as you can see here, as best he could. You can see it's looking really good. All right, now let's go to the fun part, which is setting up everything else. So again, we get to come back here. We pull out our left side. So here's our left side tools here, and we'll just drag those guys in. And there they are. So we just grab the crazy colored one, turn off sRGB, and close it down. Takes a little time for this 4K maps to register. And then of course we look for the left geo. So we'll go ahead and throw that up. And again, we just drag in these three new maps. You can see it's the, oops, that's not it. We need the right glass. Let's see, so we need the left. We need the left side. There it is, left side, left side, left. Make sure you grab the right ones. This can be confusing sometimes. So again, let's drag those in. And say goodbye to that. And drag these guys over. Base color, normal, and again, top from the bottom, ambient, roughness, and metallic. And then I'll go ahead and close this, like so. Give it a second, and finally you'll see it showing up. Be careful when you grab things in here. You can so easily move things out of place, which absolutely annoys the daylights out of me. Alright, so let's go with the final piece here of the puzzle. That's this ratio. So again, we'll come over here, grab the final textures that we have yet to choose. So right side. And this one we actually have emissive, so you see base color, occlusion, normal, and emissive. The rest of these, I don't see any emissive pass. And I'll just drag those in here. Alright, so we finally have our final last piece of geo here. And again, I will do my best to delete this out, and I'll take make sure you're grabbing the right side, right side, right side, right side. I'm just going to drag that in, and this here's the emissive pass. You can see it looks rather interesting, so I'm going to put this into the base color, and this is the emissive, so we plug that into the emissive channel, emissive color. It's going to be the glowy type stuff. Here is our normal map, so I'll plug the normal map in, and the same thing again, ambient occlusion, roughness, and metallic. There we go. And we'll go ahead and close this up, and apply, yes. And there we go, so we got Ivan's wonderful scene in here, and you can grab this geometry and hit F to frame and just move around it. And if you take a look, you'll see, again, the glass is not, there's no transparency in the glass. There's a tint of blue, obviously, from the color, but these are like, their alpha channels are actually like 50% gray, obviously. But you can come in here, you can see the emissive is working just fine and so forth. Let's go ahead and bake the lighting really quick on here. So again, I'll come to build. Let's do a full build here. So there you go. And you can also take the light and rotate it if you want to get some interesting shadows going on there. So you can do something like that. And again, we could do one more bake on the light really quick, build lighting only. So you can see, even though it's dark inside there, we have the actual lighting actually figured out down there. So you can see it's pretty much what it is. And again, it's looking really good. Now, there's a couple things you're going to notice as you kind of take a look here. One will be, for instance, the metal areas. The metal areas might be like pure black. So if you take a look at some of these pieces here, like for instance, this here is like pure black, which should be, if you recall, in the original substance file, it's a reflective chrome, right? So that's something that we got to be a little bit aware of through this whole process. At this point, I like to start deleting out certain things in here. I got a lot of crap in here I don't need, so I definitely want to keep this ground, which I'm going to keep. Everything else I'm going to say goodbye to. So I got all this other stuff here, like all these boxes right here. I can just go ahead and delete those. These, you can see these editor cubes. I'll show you what those are. So you got like these little pieces that are, say, nav modifiers and so forth. So those you want to be careful of here. So I could take those and get rid of everyone except the first one, I believe. And go ahead and delete that. And these are navigation areas. And then what I'm going to do is take these editor cubes, get rid of those. And let's get rid of all editor cubes. Get rid of all these guys. Okay, so we also have these like constrained pieces here. So this is a light mass volume. We can go ahead and get rid of that. Post-processing volume, get rid of that. Our light source and skylight, we're going to leave those for now. We also have the, let's see what this is, box brush. That's our original box. We want to keep that. That's the ground plane. Again, you can see if I delete it, it goes by. And I'm just going to keep that. So we got this pickup cube, get back to that. Bounds volume, this is basically showing us where we can actually walk. So you can kind of see the bounds volume if I kind of back up a little bit here. can see this is telling us, like, it's basically kind of telling us where we can move around. And let's see what else we got here. Recast nav mesh, probably get rid of that. Sky dome blueprint. This sky sphere is actually the picture of this sky. So you take a look at it here. Let's see, we have a sky in here, and you can see edit BP sky sphere if you wish. And here you can go in, add all types of stuff in here to whatever, if you want to bring in HDMIs and so forth. So now we're kind of stuck with a very basic setup here. We got like this ground plane and so forth, but I want to take this actual box color and give it a material. So I'm going to create a material in here. So I'm going to right click here and say new material, or just material. Call this transparent, and we'll basically take that, and you can see the base color, metallic, specular, all this stuff here. We can go over here to the blend mode. You see opaque, or you can make it translucent or masked and so forth. So we could probably come in here and put this to, let's put this to translucent. Let's do it to mask. And you see the opacity mask that shows up. What I'm going to do is right click and make a constant. So I'll just drag a constant in. That's a value of 0, so we'll take the opacity mask and makes it invisible. So now I'm going to go ahead and just close this down. And now we could just assign this transparency to the ground. So now you can see we're looking straight through the ground, but I'll be able to look and see underneath in here. So very dark right now. In fact, we best redo our lighting here, and we'll probably lose some lighting information. So I'm going to say build lighting. I'll just do a quick build for everything here. And you get these obnoxious email little messages that tell you blah 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 blah. So again, we are ready to jump around in virtual reality. But before we do that, I was talking about this before, like how anything metallic or chromy is going to look black. So what we want to do is we want to go over here, and we want to get into visual effects, and you'll see a sphere reflection capture. We're going to go ahead and drag that into the scene. You can see the minute we drag it in, we get like a general reflection. See how everything goes? See the metal? See how the metal goes from like, you know, from this to actual the color information here? It's like now we all of a sudden have chrome, we have reflection. So I can drop that guy in there and move him over here. And if you take a look here, we want to take this reflection capture source, and we want to choose a specific cube map, specify cube map. If you go over here to your little folders, you see this starter content. You're going to click on that. You're going to click to HDRI, and you have this HDR courtyard. Now the best thing, I'm going to drag that in, and now we have it in the scene, as you can see here. And you have the brightness here, so I can bring this up and so forth. And it's this cube map is actually rendering in here. You can see if I move this around, you can see there is reflections going in here to our scene. The brightness of it is going to play a part. Now, what's really cool about these are it's basically a sphere. If I back up and show you, it's like a big sphere here. But you can also do what is called a box-based system. So that's kind of cool. And if I had my Theta 360 recorder, I could do a 360 HDRI and do a box-based workflow. So I could take a boxed reflection capture and drag that into the scene. And what you see is two boxes sitting inside of each other. And you have offsets for these. So for instance, what I could do is center these right here. And I can come over here and scale these if I wish. Yeah, it's going to be, well, it's going to scale the whole thing, sorry. So you could have, I could actually go to the Harrison stop, take my Theta 360 cam, record a 360 image lat long, which is what this looks like, of the scene, and actually take this, and for some reason I'm having a hard time scaling this thing down. Let's see here, maybe I need to scale it here. And let's see, so scale this. So I'm just going to click here and just drag my mouse like crazy to fit this in here. Grab each end, just scrubbing across. There we go. Okay, so what I have here is a basic cube, which will only affect the reflections that are actually in here. So you can see if I take this, you can see that, see how there's like a difference, see how you can see the reflections in here. So if you kind of take a look in here, you can see that we have the reflections inside of here. Let me go ahead and just scale this in a little bit more. Get this inside. There we go. So now you can see we're getting the reflections that are the self-reflections in C, not based on HDRI. So if I kind of zoom, kind of do that, you're going to get a nice reflections coming in on the inside here. So again, you could see how there's different ways from which you can work. Again, you can make this super big again if you want and have it affect everything. So you can see it's like it's totally up to you. It's this is about what's reflecting. The scene's reflecting the scene, but you can also put a cube map in here. So here you can see reflection source type is the captured scene itself. So we'll go ahead, you can just take this up like this here if you wish. It's totally up to you. There's different types. You could research these if you wish. You can see the fall off of the distance as far as the reflections. So you get a nice, really cool looking reflection type setup there. So again, getting those reflections in those metallic surfaces, you can see the metallic. Move up on the metallic surfaces. You can see you're seeing the reflections. You can see you're seeing reflections in here. Not so much in the bar. I'm not sure if the reflections are not that high, but you can kind of get a good viewpoint there. So before I continue to show you stuff like transparency and all that, I think I need to just jump into VR and see what's what. So what I can do here is go to Play and go to VR Preview. And what will happen is the VR menu will pop up, and again, this is just me, so you can see I can kind of look around here and so forth. So this is going to be hard for me to do because I'm putting on a VR helmet while trying to keep a microphone on my face. And I'm going to use my two HTC Vive controllers. So this is going to be very, very difficult for me to do. And I'm now looking into the space. I'm going to turn on my Oculus controllers, and they should pop up as two hands in front of me. So what I'm going to do at this point is, if I click the controller, you could see a little pad, the track pad, the circle in front of you. You can hold it down and then move your thumb from left to right on. It'll point in the direction you want to face, and then let go. Sometimes it's difficult, but I'm trying to find. You're gonna get kind of lost. Like, where the heck am I? And you got to look around to find. Oh gosh, sorry guys. Gotta find. Oh, there it is. So. Once you put on VR, you're like, what the heck? So you can kind of come down here. You could see, obviously, with the fact that we have, this is back face culling on. I can kind of see how it looks down there. I can go into the station here, and I could start to see. This is where you're really going to be like, your eyes are going to open to see all the work you did. And I could tell Ivan did a really awesome job here. I could just see the bumps. Again, there is a tutorial on how to add physical displacements using the height information export from Substance that actually can give some bumpiness to this ground. I mean, it is a trick, as you can see here, as I put my hand through it. It is a fake depth, but height can actually displace this, believe it or not, and triangulate the ground to actually give real displacement. So you can see if I come into a scene here, I should start seeing reflections in here. I don't see why I'm seeing them in virtual reality. But you can see the lighting scenario. You can see all this stuff in here. It's very dark in here, obviously, because it is what it is. We have, but let's come around the corner here. Sorry, guys, it's kind of hard to do with a tethered microphone. But I can come around the corner here. You can see all the wonderful work. We've got that spooky-looking sun up there with no lens flare, and it's looking really good. You can see all the nice bumps, and I'm going to show you in a technique in a minute how you can really make the stuff to come alive. So far, virtual reality to me looks really cool. The broad daylight virtual reality still feels like somebody took a bunch of cardboard boxes and painted them, and that's your geometry. But I'll be quite honest, once you put this stuff into night vision, and obviously we're going to be moving into the the RTX engines, where we're going to see these interactive reflections and so forth through real-time ray tracing. But as you can see, it's still pretty awesome. And again, I'm sitting down in a chair. That's why it looks like I'm like a little child walking around. But you can see the Harrison stop looks really beautiful. You can really get a hold of your texture work. And the beauty is, because my export settings are currently set up to the proper folder inside of Substance, I can go into Substance, make changes, export out my textures. The information will propagate right through into my Unreal Engine. And the Unreal, I just load up the level again, and it'll update all my textures, and I could just see the adjustments being made. So there's always a back and forth. There is a Substance algorithmic plugin for real-time display in the engine, so you can actually go back and forth between Substance and Unreal. It's a really cool plugin, a little bit obnoxious to set it up. I find it kind of a little weird. You got to bring in the mesh first or something, then export that out, or you got to overwrite files. But overall, this is a nice daytime shot, as you can see. And I would love to do a VR day if we ever have like a visiting employers day. I'd love to do a day where everyone's models are there, and you have like a little text like that says, you know, Ivan Leon's work and so forth, and you know, you could just walk onto it and take a look. I think that would impress at like a job fair or something. So again, you can see everything is looking really, really good, and I'm going to get out of this. So give me a minute here. Hit escape, and there you go. So again, do this in the VR room where you have Oculus Rift, and you obviously have the setup here with Steam with all the sites set to green. So once this is on, you know you're good. Okay, so with all that said, let's move on to finishing this up and doing some nighttime lighting. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the transparency that I'm deeply grieved to tell you is not working correctly. Okay, so let's get a light in our scene. So I'm going to go to lights. I'm going to grab a point light, just drag it into my scene here, and then I'm just going to translate that into the scene so I can kind of see some of the lighting going on here. There we go. So if you haven't noticed already, if you take a look at the reflections, you're seeing the sky in the reflections, and that's because this capture square is actually outside of the boundary, so just be aware of that. Alright, so I got this light here in the scene just so I can kind of see in here, and you can see anything that was transparent it is what it is. It's solid. I can't, it looks like marble, which is really weird. So how can I try to get transparency in this? Well, let's go back to our content folder. And I'm going to jump over to the material here. So we have our left glass. We're going to stick with that for now. I'm going to double click that. There's a couple options in here you can set this to. The blending mode, I could set this from opaque to masked. So watch my material when I switch it to masked. The option for opacity mask comes in. Now opacity really has to do with different gradations between black and white and grayscale for opacity. And opacity mask is either an on-off process. In other words, it's either black or white. Either it's transparent or it's completely not transparent. So what I do is I'll take the alpha input here and plug that into my opacity mask that's now open. And you'll see in this little viewport here, if you use your middle mouse scroll wheel, you can see how this is going to look. We're not going to get the areas that were actually glass are going to go 100% non-transparent. Okay. I'm sorry, 100% transparent. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to say go ahead and update, and you're going to see what I mean when you say you can't have your cake and eat it too. Give it a couple seconds, it'll update, and there we go. So now take a look. The glass has become perfectly transparent. Now we're seeing double-sided here, see that? So what we might want to do is double-click our material and turn on double-sided. So there's a little option here called two-sided, so you click on that checkbox. So it's surface, masked, two-sided, and I'm going to close it again. Yes. For those of you that did the red eye, you guys won't have this problem, obviously, because you're not dealing with transparencies. So now you can see it's double-sided, so we see on the opposite side of the sign, but we still don't have any signs. You know, it's just horrific. It's like, well, where's all this glass I killed myself for? Let's do it to the other side, right? So I'll come over to the right glass, and I will choose surface masked. And see the mask input opens up, opacity mask. I'll plug that in here. And we're going to click on two-sided, and then I'll close this. Hit OK. Okay. And just give that a couple seconds. And there you go. So now you can see if we come around to the other side, we are not, we're not getting the glass. Basically as if the glass has completely disappeared in our scene. So again, not the greatest thing to be aware of here. So what's the middle ground on this? How do we work this out? Well, I'll be honest with you. Upon us, the genesis of us building this scene, we should have just, if these billboards here, we should have had them as just separate pieces of geometry. And just, because these are billboards that are plastered up against a glass window. If it's glass, if it's semi-transparent, everything should be semi-transparent. There shouldn't be any fully opaque objects on it. So that's the rule book. You cannot do it, unfortunately. There are some ways of mixing materials and so forth. I've watched a few training videos. I looked all over online to see if fix this. I haven't been. My Mortal Kombat days were 10 years ago, guys, when I was working on the Unreal Engine as a character artist. So it's been a while since I've fiddled around the Unreal Engine. But just finding out the new research on Unreal 4, you can't do it. So if what we should do in the future, if you have any glass, let it be glass. Now, a good kind of compromise for this is how you should set up the glass if it's 100% glass. So I'm going to show you that. So I'm going to go to the left glass, double click it, and you see there's a couple options in here. There's one for translucency. There's a couple of videos I will link at the bottom of this video that are good translucency / Fresnel effect / frosted glass effects that you can use to make glass. But in our case, we have alpha composite pre-malt alpha. So this has to do with the semi-transparencies. And if you take a look at the viewer, you're going to get some very interesting results. You can see first off, you're getting some strange artifact in the render, but it is what it is, right? So you can see here, this is set to a surface, alpha composite, and two-sided. So I'm going to close this down now and hit yes. And you're going to see something slightly different here compared to what we had before. So if you take a look, see if I can, for some reason, oh, I know what the problem is. You go back into left glass. The option for opacity mask, when you switch between masked, which has the opacity mask option, to alpha composite pre-malt alpha, the opacity channel opens up. And this was, as I talked about, the opacity channel deals with the grayscale variants of different degrees of opacity from black to grayscale to white. So I just have to plug that in to the opacity input. And it's really just using that. So with that said, we can go ahead and take this and close it and say yes. And just give it a second there. So this is one choice from which we can deal with here. So you're getting the problem is you're getting the opaque areas are getting slightly transparent in here, as you can see. So it isn't the greatest, as you can see. We are getting the semi-transparent glass there. Let's do this to the other side. So again, I'll do the right click side, and you can see I'm going to choose this from mask to alpha composite pre-melt alpha. And we got to plug in our alpha channel, opacity, close this down and say yes. There is some artifacts you're going to find in here, unfortunately, because we're doing this craziness. You're going to find some very interesting, see this like this. That's a very, see that strange artifact there when we look through 2 layers of transparencies. This is a sorting issue that you guys will have a lot of fun trying to deal with in here. I'm still trying to figure it out. Like I said, it's a bit weird. I'll take the right glass one more time and just show you if you go with translucency. So if I do translucency, we can see the opacity mask is still plugged in here and all this other stuff. And just close this down, hit OK. So again, this is the right glass. I'll just show you translucency and give it a couple seconds to render. And you're starting to get some element of the dirt in there or something, and it's a bit strange, like I said. So I'm going to go click on the right again, and you can see there's a couple of options in the translucency options. You can do two-sided. There's also, it's a little bit tricky, gang. There's translucency. You can do screen space reflections. I don't know. I've fiddled around with some of this stuff. I'm still trying to get it to work right. But the big three are obviously the matted, the regular matted, and then this. So you can see this weird issue here where things are like there's like a weird order here. So if you grab the geometry and you go under the details, you will find let's see here, a sorting. It's under rendering, I believe it is, under this little button here, show advanced under rendering. And you'll see something called, here it is, translucency sort priority. So watch what happens when I take this and fiddle with it. See that? So if I go from 0 to 1, the translucency order actually shows two translucent objects looking in this direction. But if I go back to the other direction, it's not working, as you can see. So I was fiddling and just clicking on some buttons in here. There's all types of stuff in here. I was trying to see if there was here's the sorting issue. We could put this at, 2, and yeah, we're still getting the issue. So it's almost as if, I hate to say it, because we're dealing with this weird transparency here, I'm going to have to put this to 0 and just make sure that this is up against the wall and I never come around the other side of the corner. Do some research on your own. You'll find that you'll be able to figure it out. I found a way to get the dirt to look really good, but I forgot how I did it. So this is where you guys become you get to go in and try things out. So I'm going to go ahead at this last moment, show you a couple other things. I'm going to get rid of all this lighting information. So I'm going to get rid of lighting folder and say goodbye to that. Okay. So obviously that's there. I'm also going to get rid of this sky blueprint here. So you can see it's there. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. And there is our light. Now the lighting hasn't been baked in yet, so I also have this skylight here, light source. I'm going to get rid of that. And again, all we have right now is just this, I think we have one little light here in the scene right here that's actually lighting our scene. So let's go ahead and just quickly do a build. So we'll just do a quick build and see what we get. So there is our lighting scene, way more dramatic, as you can see. And you'll see, now that I got the sun out of the way, that we're starting to see some of the dirt in here. See that dirt there? And like I said, we're getting some weird artifacts here from the light. So again, it's up to you the way you want to render this, if you want to present this for now. I'm doing some hunting around. I will probably update this tutorial. If there's anybody in my community of 5,000 subscribers that knows the fix on this, definitely let me know. But this is the whole part of learning here. So let's go to the left glass, and this time I'm just going to put this back to masked for either a black or white base transparency. And I'll go ahead and escape and hit yes. And then doing this, I won't have that weird issue where I have like a transparency issue before the sorting. When you have two double transparencies looking through each other, that's where you have a sorting issue. So you can see this actually doesn't look too bad for what I'm showing here. I am seeing a little bit of that dirt. You can see I can take this light and kind of play with it. So I'm going to take this light, I'm going to leave it right here. I'm going to duplicate it. And again, or I'll just bring in another point light, like right here, and drag it up here so I get the Harrison stop. I'm going to give it a little bit of a nice hue, so I'll give it like maybe a little bit of a yellow hue, or maybe a cool tone hue, like that. There we go. And then you can also obviously take the intensity here. So in radius, you can bring this down so it's only a certain area here. And again, you could do intensity of the light. Take that down, up. And let's go ahead and add a spotlight for the heck of it. So I'll bring a spotlight in and drag that up. Give it some get a dramatic feel to this. And with that spotlight, I can take that and change the color of that. So I'll give it let's give it a red color. There we go. And let's bring up the saturation really big there. And then of course you got the intensity. I can bring the intensity up, so it's look a little, let's go with, there we go. And you got you got your inner cone fall off. You have your outer cone fall off, like that. and then your fall off radius here, which is really cool. So in this case, I want to jump into VR and just enjoy my little world. So I'm going to take my subways here. I'm going to grab all pieces. I'm going to hit Control G to group them. So now they're one single group. Okay, and you can see the pivot point. Let's go ahead and take these guys. So you can see if I click on them, they're a single group in here. And what I can do with the pivot point is if I just select my middle mouse button and put it right here in the middle, I can hold down the middle mouse button and drag and change the pivot point, which is kind of cool. But the minute I click on this again, the pivot point comes back. So what I want to do is take this group and duplicate it. So the way you do that is you can do edit copy and then edit paste. You can also do duplicate Control W, but that actually moves it and offsets it. So I'm going to move this over here off to the side like this. The lighting obviously needs to be redone. So what I'll do is I'll hold down, I'll come over here, put my middle mouse button down, click and hold, and I'm going to hold down the letter V now that I've done that and snap this to the corner. And then I will hold down my, this V again and use my left mouse button and snap that to this corner like this. So now I have two of these, as you can see, and the lighting is not making any sense, so I need to rebuild the lighting. So I hit build. And I'm not sure what happened here. I'm going to delete this again and find out why this is not happening. So I'm going to group this again. So I'll just take this and group it. Right click, you can do groups. So you can see it is a group. And I'm going to duplicate it again. In this case, I'm going to do Control W. Here we go, and drag it over. And for some reason, I'm getting these odd artifacts in here, and I think it's because of my reflection maps and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of those box reflection. I think I got two of them in here. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to get rid of these two. I'm going to get rid of that sphere reflection capture. Yeah, the sphere, this looks like the sphere reflection capture is what's causing the problems here. And I'll just kind of leave that out of the gist here. There we go. Alright, so I'll grab this new group here and probably move this. Let's see if I can. Anyway, I'll just go ahead and hold down the letter middle mouse button, drag, hold down the D. I'm sorry, the V for Victor, and then let go, and then hold down V and left mouse button and snap it like that. So there we go. So I'll do this one more time. Control W. Move it over here. Another group. And again, I'm going to hold down the letter V for Victor, or hold down my middle mouse button, hold down V for Victor, snap to that edge, and then I'm going to take this and hold down the letter V and left mouse button and drag it over here. Now I'm going to quickly jump to my rotate this 90 degrees like that. So now I have a little street area, which is really cool. And I can also come in here and add a couple more lights to the scene. So I'll just take another point light here and drag it back here. And maybe give this a bluish tint or whatever. Gotta find my spawn point. I might be sitting on my spawn point if I'm not careful here. So let me find my little spawn dude, VR spawn. I'm gonna move him over here. I think I'm gonna rotate him too. So rotate his pivot point, looking in that direction. So that'll be the starting point. You can see where he's going to be. You can see in a little window here, it shows you what he's looking at when he starts out. Obviously, at this point, we should probably do some lighting. I did lose my reflections, so you should see in here that the reflections in here are probably gone. That's why they're rendering black. Actually, they don't look too bad, but you definitely want to make sure under visual effects you have like a exponential, or where is it at here? Yeah, box reflection. So I can stick that back in the scene. And you see it's encompassed the entire scene there. And that's good enough. And again, you could put an HDRI in here by going to your startup content and putting that HDRI image in there. Let's go ahead and build this, and we'll play it one more time here. Keep your eye out on these little options. Objects are overlapping UVs. Obviously, somebody had some overlapping UVs somewhere in their geo. So there's my scene. I'm going to jump into VR now and play this. So we'll go to VR preview. And now I have to pick up my thing that's sitting on the floor. And let's see if we can do this without my microphone falling apart here. Give me a second here, gang. This is going to be a bit tricky. Okay, so I'll just... There we go. And again, I'm tethered to a microphone with a very small cord here, so let me get my controllers, turn them on, because they went asleep. You'll notice these controllers will go to sleep on you. Alright, so let's see if I can turn around. So you can hold down the pulse button and you should be able to, there we go. So this is looking really, oops, my tracking's off. This is looking really cool because the darker you go in VR, the more realistic it is, believe it or not. So here you can take a look. I've also got this annoying interactive lighting thing, which I should turn off. See how it's like slowly, the light is fading in and out, but you can see the reflections. Let's see if I can get it over here. Oh my gosh, it's a nightmare. Like I said, I can't move around too much because I'm tethered, but you can see the reflections. I'll just make my way down this scary, I mean, this is crazy, guys. I mean, this is like, for just something you created really quickly, and if you keep your set in the modular mindset when you build, you'll find that it'll really help you build out, do less work, but build out something that you can actually use in your scene. So you can see the reflections there in that nice hard work that Ivan did, because he wanted to go for that very kind of like brushed metal look, and it looks like he succeeded. But all that translated over from Substance. Let's go into this spooky area. And you can see why there's so many horror games in VR, because you can really freak somebody out in this stuff. So let's go ahead and see if I can get over here. So yeah, it's like, ooh, spooky. So anyway, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I will link at the bottom to a couple of translucency, frosty glass type tutorials from YouTube. Hopefully this is enough for you to get started.